But I got a question for you as we get started today. Have you ever had something prepared for you that was like specific for you by someone maybe you love, right? I mean, because that's a big deal. Something that was prepared for you, specifically for you by someone that you love, right? Now, ladies, don't throw your spouses under the bus right now, okay? But maybe there was that one time, where he picked the date, right? He picked the restaurant, he made the reservations, he got the babysitter. All the guys are getting mad at me right now saying, "What are you doing? Shut up," right? But he picked everything, right? He even chose what was going to happen after the date and where you guys were going to go for dessert and all of that. Everything was prepared for you, right? I mean, just so that you could feel loved. That's a big deal. What about you guys, all right? And maybe this hasn't happened, but, again, don't throw your spouses under the bus. But maybe you just got married, and I don't know if you guys can remember this, any of those who are married, but you come home, guys, right? You come home, and to your newly wedded wife, right? Honeymoon's over. You come home to a home-cooked meal at the dinner table. Do you remember that? I mean, you don't know if she can cook yet, but you're happy that there's a meal there, right? And so I remember for me and Connie were still dating at the time, and I went to her apartment after work one day, and she made me a meal. And I remember feeling like, I didn't expect this. I don't know what to say, right? I was overwhelmed with this feeling of love and respect because she timed it perfectly. She knew, because we both worked at the same place at the time, so she knew what time I probably would end up at the house. And so I remember walking through the door, and everything was on the table. All I had to do was go wash my hands, and I could come down and sit at the dinner table and eat. That was a cool feeling. And I remember thinking, I don't know if I was cheesing on the outside, but I definitely was on the inside. Maybe I was trying to play it cool because I didn't want her to know how much I love this. But Connie's smart. She knew the way to my heart was through my stomach, right? And so now we're married 17 years later, right? But see, when something is prepared specifically for you, it's special. It's special. It's memories that you remember forever, like an heirloom that a father passes down to generation to generation. The reason, it may not be the value of the trinket or the thing, but it's the meaning of the person that gave it to you. Do you know what I mean? When something is prepared for you specifically, it's super important. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. I want to talk to you about a love that was prepared for you. And not just you as an individual, but you as a representation of all the nations. A love that was prepared for all the nations. And that's kind of the big point today. God has planned his love for all nations. And you may look at this as like love. When I talk about love, right? Love can be kind of sometimes a sappy word, right? I'm not much of a feeler guy. I don't cry at stuff, and I don't get emotional. I like things blowing up and, limbs falling off and stuff like that, right? But you think about a love. When I talk about a love that's being prepared for you, sometimes we look at that as something that's like a fairy tale or wishful thinking. When I bring this big word out, the big 4-letter word of love, what does that even mean? How does that even look? And we might have this preconceived notion, right? But I'm here to tell you otherwise. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And there's one of my favorite Christmas songs. Only around this time can I really get into Christmas music for a very short term, But one of my favorite Christmas songs is We Three Kings. Anybody know that song? No? No, I'm not going to sing it. But good try, Megan. Good try. And I'm not going to sing it because I can't remember the words. But I think it's like, we three kings of Orient are, keep going. Bearing gifts, we traveled afar, right? What I love about this song is that it's not just a song like of a made-up person, but it's a song about a historical fact. It's a song about a time in history. It's one of my favorite songs. And we all know the story, right? We've all heard the birth of Christ. We've all heard it. We know all the pieces. In fact, this is a story that even kids could tell.
An angel came to see Mary. She was doing laundry, and then the angel just appeared and she was really scared. So Gabriel was like, Mary, you're gonna have, I can't say it good. Mary, you're gonna have a baby. You're gonna have a baby, and you will call him Jesus. And then Mary was like, I'm not gonna have a baby yet. I'm only a teenager. I'm not married. Then the angel Gabriel told Joseph that Mary is not lying. You are having a new baby. And so they met up. They went to Bethlehem, which was Joseph's old town. They ride a donkey. I don't know. A camel. Oh yeah, a camel. She said, this donkey's fast. They tried to go to a hotel and they asked the keeper for a place to stay. The keeper said,
we have no rooms. Literally, no rooms. So Mary and Joseph walked away sadly, but then he said,
the only place here in Bethlehem that you can stay is a stable. And then he just pointed the way and they followed. When the shepherds were taking care of the sheep,
then they saw angels.
The angel said, a new baby is getting born, who is King of the Jews.
The angel were singing.
Glorious. And then the shepherd said, I think we should go there and meet him. The second, I think, said, yeah, I agree with you. And the other said, yeah, me too. They had to walk through a bunch of grass and bushes, maybe have to camp out a night. And then the wise men heard about it.
And then a star appeared.
We should probably follow that star. It's pointing down to the barn.
So maybe we should follow it. Maybe. So the wise men went to Jesus.
They gave them gifts.
A stuffed animal, like a hippo one, that I have at home.
Some diapers, and some wipes, and some milk, some shoes, some Jordans.
Gold ring and Latimer.
And I don't know how it would survive in that barn. Too stinky, too crowded, and ugh.
I think he probably pooped because the room was very smelly. Thank you for coming.
He's adorable.
He's gonna be our best friend.
I love you, and you're the best baby I ever seen. There, I said it.
The new baby is gonna change the world.
That's all we needed. I love you. You're the best baby in the world. Well, what's that story, right? And especially the We Three Kings, right? We hear this story of foreign kings and camels, and like a star appeared. Like, what significance was that? Didn't know, but they know that a star appeared, right? Gifts, bowing down to a newborn king. It's an amazing story. It's an amazing story. But it didn't happen on accident. In fact, 700 years before it happened, it was prophesied that this would happen. See, there was this preparation that was happening. Even though nobody knew it, even though nobody understood why it was happening. And so we're going to be in Isaiah chapter 60. If you have your Bibles today, you're going to want to turn there. Isaiah's in the Old Testament. Isaiah was a prophet from the Lord, and so the Lord would speak to him and he would speak to the people. And in this situation, Israel is in a very dark place. It seems that once again they have been held captive by somebody, right? We all know they were captive to Egypt and Pharaoh, right? It seems at this point that they had now been enslaved by the Babylonians. It looks like they were kind of coming out of that on their way back to their city that was torn down in ruins. And they're picking up the pieces once again. So this is not a happy time. This isn't going to grandma's house because she makes the best cookies, right? They're defeated. They're in a dark place, darkness. Think of that word. That's a common word here in Isaiah as he's talking about that. And what about you? Have you ever received news? Because what Isaiah is about to tell them is really good news. It's actually a great word of encouragement, even though they probably weren't in the best place to hear it, right? Have you ever received good news at the worst time, which made it the best news ever, right? I remember a friend of mine, she was telling me about a story where she was going to be in the hospital, and she was going to be out of work. And because she was going to be out of work, she was going to be late for her paying her rent. And she didn't know how it was going to happen. And I remember this story. And then she told me, wow, the day she went into the hospital, and I might be missing the details, but I remember her telling me she went to the hospital, and all of a sudden, she got this call or this email or this message from their insurance company that she didn't even remember she had. And what ended up happening was they were going to pay for her being in the hospital that time she missed for her work to pay her bills. And so think about this. You're in the bed. You're helpless. You can't do anything. You're stuck. Right? You're stuck in this dark place, this hard place, right? A rock and a wall, right? Or a hard place. And then she gets this good news and just like, wow, that was the best news ever. It reminded me of how God is going to take care of me. Well, this is kind of how I see this passage. In Isaiah chapter 60, if you're with me, you can turn there. It says, "Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you. See, darkness covers the earth, and thick darkness is over the peoples. But the Lord rises upon you, and his glory appears over you. Nations will come to your light, and kings to the brightness of your dawn. Lift up your eyes and look about you, and assemble and lift up your eyes and look about you. All assemble and come to you. Your sons come from afar, and your daughters are carried on the hip. Then you will look and be radiant. Your heart will throb and swell with joy. The wealth of the seas will be brought to you. To you the riches of the nations will come. Herds of camels will cover your land, young camels of Midian and Ephah. And all from Sheba will come, bearing gold and incense, and proclaiming the praise of the Lord. All Kedar's flocks will be gathered to you, and the rams of Nebaioth will serve you. They will be accepted as offerings on my altar, and I will adorn my glorious temple. Who are these that fly along like clouds, like doves to their nests? Surely the islands look to me. In the lead are the ships of Tarshish, bringing your children from afar with their silver and gold, to honor the Lord your God, the Holy One of Israel, for he has endowed you with splendor." So again, we read this, right? And a lot of this might not make a lot of sense, but you get the words like, think about the star, think about the foreign kings coming, think about bowing and bringing gifts of gold and frankincense and myrrh and incense, all of these things. It's like a little kid telling these stories, but all of these details are really important. They're really important for us to understand, because when we're talking about love, oops, I forgot to light my candles today. That was for hope last week, and this one is for love. We're talking about love and how God has planned his love for all the nations, which is represented in this room as well. And here's the first point that I want to bring to you today. This love prepared for you is full of details. It's full of details. Kind of like when a husband plans that date and he thinks through all the details Oh, I'm going to need this. I'm going to need this. I don't want her to have to think about this. I don't want her to have to think about, how we're going to get there. I'm going to plan everything. Sometimes the love is in those details, right? And here we see God planning out the details. The light in Isaiah 60 has a dual meaning for the star, but also for Jesus. Nations coming and assembling from afar on camels, right? These are all details that were talked about 700 years beforehand. Wealth brought to you specifically mentions gold and incense. Looking to the Lord and worship, and even the sense of joy is foretold. Now we're gonna jump to the New Testament really quick, and I want to read you the story of the three wise men, okay? In Matthew 2, it says, "Now after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, saying, 'Where is he who has been born the King of the Jews? For we saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him.'" Very much like Isaiah 60. After listening to the king, they went on their way, and behold, the star that they had seen when it rose went before them until it came to rest over the place where the child was. And when they saw the star, they rejoiced exceedingly with great joy. And going into the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother, and they fell down and worshipped him. Then opening their treasures, they offered him gifts, gold and frankincense and myrrh. And being warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they departed to their own country by another way. So I read you this story, right? We're talking about love, a love that's prepared, and a love that's in the details. And what does this have to do for us? Why is this story still relevant today? See, with this story, we're separated by time. This happened a long time ago. We're separated by culture, and we're separated by language, right? From these events. We weren't there. This didn't happen to us. But that's the cool thing, because, see, God made a plan for people who were separated by time, culture, and language. He prepared these details in this prophecy that was happening in Isaiah 60 that is actually coming to fruition in Matthew chapter 2. It's a plan of love, and it's a plan full of details. Full of details. And what I want, my hope is, I don't know what your fairy tale picture of God is. I don't know what you grew up believing. I don't know if you know him personally. But what I want to do is introduce you into somebody that has prepared a love for you today. I want you to meet that person. That's my hope. That's my goal. So with that, today, if you feel like you're far from God, if you're far from all of this, this story lets you know that God cares about you. He cares about you. He has come to save you in the details of your life. The details of your life, everything that you have gone through, everything that you bring to the room today, all of that has been thought through. All of that was not for nothing. He took them into account, and maybe he even brought you to a low point right now that you find yourself here today. And I believe it's so that you can understand him, not just in this love that he has prepared for you, but that you would know him as Savior. All of it is for purpose. The second thing I see here is that this love is from the Savior of all nations. God has never been content to just save only a certain group of people. And from the beginning in Genesis we read, and you don't have to turn there, I'll read it to you. It says, "Now the Lord said to Abram, 'Go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you. And I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great, so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and him who dishonors you I will curse. And in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed.'" This is another prophecy, another thing that God said he would do that he completed in Matthew 2 when Jesus was born. It was a detail that he had described earlier, even earlier than 700 years. Everything God does, this is what we see, everything that God does is to bring about the salvation of the whole world. Everything that he does, it's because of love. For God so loved the world. The world. And that's important to understand, because he could have said, "For God so loved the Israelites." But that's not what it says. Does he love the Israelites? Absolutely. He loves the Jewish nation. Those were his people. They are his people. But he says, for God so loved the world, every people group, every generation. God's heart is for that, and his love has been prepared for so long, and it is unfolding. It's unfolding even before you today. In the prophecy, he reminds the people in verse 4, he says, lift up your eyes all around and see. They all gather together. They come to you. Your sons shall come from afar, and your daughters shall be carried on the hip. Now, this is talking about them coming back to Jerusalem, this city that has been torn down and defeated, and that one day Jerusalem will thrive again. That's kind of what he's saying. But there is this prophetic meaning of this as well. Because in that moment, it may be hard to think about a hopeful future. You know what I mean? How many of you, when you guys are like down, stuck in the dirt, in the ground, when you're laying on the back face up, is it hard to think about the good days that are coming? It's super hard. We're more thinking about like, how will I get out of this? Oh, this is going to be a long road, right? But here Isaiah's telling them something super futuristic, so far ahead that they don't even understand it. Dude, we just got freed again. We have nothing. And you're talking about that people are going to come to us. They're going to come to us, and our sons shall come from afar, and your daughter shall be carried on the hip. But these words were words of comfort for a people who really needed to hear it. They really needed it. And it makes me think of the future event that would take place where this world would be challenged. But God, being all-knowing, he prepared for this too. This is what I love in these words. These words that are really important. It wasn't the words like, you will rebuild and bear more children who are going to be Jewish. And your city's going to be great. No, what he said was, your sons will come from afar and the daughters will be carried in on the hip. That's important language. Because what that means is that they're not going to be born there. They're going to be coming from the outside. That's the terminology of adoption. And that's honestly the good news for us today. Because that's where we come in. And this prophecy that is so amazing, this story of love that's unfolding, as you could know, some people, they're threatened by that. King Herod was definitely threatened by that. In Matthew chapter 2, when Herod, when he saw that he had been tricked by the wise men, right? So they had a dream and went home a different way, realized that he had been duped. He became furious. And he sent and killed all the male children in Bethlehem and in all the region who were 2 years old and under, according to the time that he had ascertained from the wise men. So he's tried to time it. Okay, this is when the wise men told me about this King of the Jews, Jesus, the Savior that's born, and he just tried to wipe out everybody, thinking that he would erase this problem that he was having. Then was fulfilled what was spoken by the prophet Jeremiah. It says, a voice was heard in Ramah, weeping and loud lamentation. Rachel weeping for her children. She refused to be comforted because they are no more. An entire generation was cut off. An entire generation was cut off because of an evil king. But in the prophecy of Isaiah, we see a great hope. He speaks into the sorrow to come 700 years from now. And he uses this word. He says in verse 9, for he has endowed you with splendor. So God, who's all-knowing, who knows everything, who through Isaiah is giving this prophecy, God knowing that what King Herod would do and how he would try to erase this, there is pain. Sometimes, and hear me, sometimes in our walk, there's pain. Sometimes in our walk, there is obstacles that are really hard to navigate through. They seem hopeless. They seem unfair. God, if you're so loving and great, why would you allow this to happen? Why do children have to die? Why do men be consumed, or why are they consumed with power and make evil decisions? That's a whole nother sermon. But what I love about this prophecy is that God was telling his people through this of a hope. And it wasn't that you were going to rebuild this, because he probably knew that that was not going to happen, this whole generation being cut off. But to a nation who lost their future, God says, I am building you a new future, giving you new children, not birthed in, but carried in through adoption. That's wonderful. And that's the blessing that we actually have here today. I'll bring you to John chapter 1, verses 12 and 13. It says, but to all who did receive him, meaning Jesus, who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God. Who were born not of blood, hear what I'm saying, nor the will of the flesh, nor the will of man, but of God. That is the story. That is the love that has been prepared for you and me. Down to the details. God is a God of details. His love is full of details. And his love is for all the nations, for all the people, not just a select group of people. And we read through the New Testament, we understand there are then apostles that go and start speaking to the Gentiles. But man, even before that happened, God's heart was already planning that. That was already part of his plan. We are the sons and daughters that are being carried in on the hip. It's a generation. I love it. It's in essence what it's saying is, God's saying is, they're going to try, but they will not succeed. Because what I'm establishing can't be broken. It cannot be cut off. Oh man, that's good news. That is really good news. The last thing this morning, if you're taking notes, this love secures a future hope. See, this nation that he's creating, that he's talking about, has no end. And the end of this chapter points to the future hope. Now, Isaiah is looking beyond just the birth of Christ to the eternal reign of Christ. We talked a little bit about this last week, but I don't think we can say it enough. Hear what I'm saying. Jesus Christ is coming back one day. He's coming back. That is not a Disney story. That is not this fairy tale pipe dream just to make you feel happy during certain seasons of the year. Because if that's not true, then all of this is a big waste of time. And I would have much rather slept in today. You know what I'm saying? But he's coming back. Now, I can't say it enough. I can't say it enough. Listen to these words. The sun shall be no more, your light by day, nor for brightness shall the moon give you light. But the Lord will be your everlasting light, and your God will be your glory. Your sun shall no more go down, nor your moon withdraw itself, for the Lord will be your everlasting light, and your days of mourning shall be ended. Your people shall be righteous. They shall possess the land forever, the branch of my planting, the work of my hands, that I might be glorified. The least one shall become a clan, and the smallest one a mighty nation. I am the Lord. In its time I will hasten it. These are some really cool words of a picture that we don't experience. We expect the sun to come up each day. We expect it to bring us light, daylight, right? Except when it's cloudy here, right? We expect the moon to give us light by night, and he's saying you're not going to need that anymore. There are things that you experience today that you will not need anymore. There's going to be a day where everybody's righteous. We're not going to look on the news and say, how can somebody do that? How could they murder? How could they do these vicious things? That's not going to be the case. See, he's talking to a future hope. Because his love wasn't just the epitome of his love. And the end of his love wasn't wrapped up at the point. It wasn't at the point of Jesus' birth. That was a huge part of it. But Jesus would bring something as he grew up. And all the miracles that Jesus did really were just they're They're a foreshadow of what's to come. This is what God wants to do in us, with us, and for us. This is a picture we see at the end of it all, and it should give us hope. The God who cared about the details back then, who meticulously put things in place. He set up the scene so that this love could unfold, and it could be greater than anything you've ever experienced. It could shatter the false imitations that maybe you ran to or are running to today. Because his love is so great and so full. And the God who fulfilled these promises then, he will fulfill them again. Because it's not over. It's not over. This love. This is what we're talking about. We're talking about the love of God. As we anticipate the birth of Christ, as we're looking to his birth, right, which is this season is about, but we're also in a time of Advent where we're waiting for Jesus to return. Why? Because everything is not right yet. We're waiting. We're waiting. Revelation chapter 21 talks about a new heaven and a new earth. Listen to this. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and the sea was no more. And I saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, "Behold, the dwelling place of God is with man. He will dwell with them, and they will be his people, and God himself will be with them as their God. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes. And death shall be no more. Neither shall there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain anymore, for the former things have passed away." Think about this future. Think about this time that is to come. And he who was seated on the throne said, "Behold, I am making all things new." And he also said, "Write this down, for these words are trustworthy and true." And he said to me, listen to this, "It is done. It is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. To the thirsty I will give from the spring of the water of life without payment. And the one who conquers will have this heritage, and I will be his God, and he will be my son." When we look at this story of love, when we see how it's been prepared and it's been unfolding and it's meticulous, it's not just this slapped together thing, right? It's not like the husband who forgot his anniversary and is scrambling to get something, you know? This is prepared. This was thought of. It is special. It is for you. Which makes me think about, as I read this story and I think about this hope as we are in Advent and we're thinking about the love of God and what does that mean? It makes me wonder what version of love you've filled your mind with. In your head, do you still read this Christmas story and understand the birth of Christ the way that Disney tells it, or maybe the way that children tell it? Random events, a star, a camel, wise men, right? Sheep that went camping, and all this story, this nice story. But it doesn't grip your heart. It doesn't capture you because you don't understand that this was love unfolded for you, planned for you. Planned for the divorce that maybe you went through. Planned for the sickness that your family had to endure. Planned for the hardships that you would feel in your family. Just like when Herod came to wipe out all these children, it was planned. This love was planned. And all that wasn't for nothing. And maybe you've been living this Christmas story with the mind the way that children tell it, or Hollywood, or Disney. And that's why you haven't experienced the love that was prepared for you. As the worship team, you guys can come forward. And maybe you've lived your entire life without really experiencing this love. Yeah, sure, maybe you know religion, and that's great. Religion's great, but religion is not going to save you. Knowing this love, this person who is love, knowing him is what is going to secure this hope and future that this prophecy is talking about. And without that, then you don't have that. So it's super important. My hope and prayer is this morning, as you bring to this room right here, think of this as an altar before the Lord. You bring your pain, you bring your questions, you bring the hardship, you bring whatever it is that you've had to endure. Why? And last week I had you come and pray, right? And the prayer was, God, do you really see me? Just come and ask, God, do you really see me? Am I just praying to walls, or are you really here? This morning, I want to invite you to maybe come and pray this prayer. God, I don't know if I've experienced your love the way that you want me to. I don't know if the version that I got is actually the right one. God, maybe I've done religion, or I've just come and been a cultural Christian, and I've considered that what I'm supposed to do, but I have not experienced this love. This is a room full of broken people, and I'm one of them. My family has gone through so much. There's so much brokenness in our family. Just the other day, I was talking and talking with my father, who's in prison right now, and he's been in prison for most of my life, really, or in and out of prison. And I was talking to him last night, and I don't have a close relationship with him. I know him. Dad, I love you. Merry Christmas. But there's always that part that says, man, this wasn't the way that it was supposed to be. This is broken. This is broken. Coming to that realization that I'm broken because this is broken. Sometimes it's hard to understand, and maybe you came from two parents, and praise God, but there's other things in your life that are broken. That's all I'm trying to say. We're broken people. We too, but here's the good news. We're being carried in. We're being carried in on the hip. We're walking into this family. That is the hope. That is the love that has been prepared for us. One of my favorite verses is God is a father to the fatherless. See, that's good for me. It may not be yours, but that's definitely mine. And I remember as a young boy reading through the book of Psalms and just hearing, my son, my son, my son, and it was like God was speaking to me. It's because I chose not to listen to a Disney story, and I chose to listen to the prophecy and the impactful words of the Bible, where it says, I chose you. I am chasing you. I gave up my deity to be in heaven, to be man, all God, to come and die for you. Because of the great love in which he loved us. This immense love, this love that we can't even replicate on our own. It makes everything that we do like a cheap imitation of the real thing. That's why I love that song, The Real Thing. Right? I can't outrun it. I can't contain it. I don't deserve it. Jesus, your love for me. It's not complacent. It's always chasing me. Jesus, your love for me. And I wonder this morning, we're talking about hope, we're talking about love. I wonder where you're at this morning. I wonder what burden is on your heart. I wonder what is so heavy that you cannot experience the love of God the way that he wants you to experience the love of God. So that's what we want to do with you. It's great to hear a sermon. It's a better thing to come in and talk to God yourself. So will we please stand? Today, this non-fairy tale truth that has been unfolding for hundreds of years has been prepared for you. Behold, I am making all things new, he said. He said, it is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. To the thirsty, I will give from the spring of water of life without payment. And the one who conquers will have his heritage, and I will be his God, and he will be my son. To all who receive him, he gives them the right to become his children. So this morning, there's a couple people I want to talk to. One, if you are burdened, if there is something heavy on your life right now, in your heart, if there is this challenging thing that is making it hard for you to experience the love of God, I want you to come to the altar and pray. And this is the question. This is what I want you to ask the Lord, right? I want you to ask him, God, is your love for me? God, is your love for me? Don't take my word for it. Come and ask him yourself. And second, if you don't know Jesus as your Lord and personal Savior, maybe you came here this morning, someone invited you, you've never been here before, or you've never made that choice yourself. I have this constant conversation with people. I say, hey, tell me about the time you came to know the Lord. They're like, oh, well, I grew up in a Christian home, or I grew up in a Catholic home. I've been saved my whole life. I'm like, no, it doesn't work like that. Sorry. There has to be a moment in time when you say, the God that maybe my mother or my father chose, I choose. Jesus, I believe that you are the Son of God who died and rose again for me. I believe in the hope of your salvation. I believe and accept the love that you give me. You are my God. You are my Savior. If you have not made that choice yourself, today is a great day to make that decision. The best decision you will ever make. To experience a love that I guarantee you have never experienced anywhere else, nor will you experience through anybody else. Josh is going to sing a song over us. You may know the words, you may not. It's a new song to us. But it's not necessarily meant for you to sing along, but maybe to reflect. And maybe have this time to come to the altar and pray. Wherever you find yourselves at this moment, if there's a burden, God, is your love for me? If you don't know him, God, I want your love. I want your salvation. I invite you to come. Come to the altar and pray.